How are you guys doing? Today is Tuesday, April 26th, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to preview the semifinal round for the 2021-2022 Champions League season. As, of course, even starting out from where the group stages were set, there were 32 teams that were competing for this title, and there are 4 teams that are left, and Chelsea has been eliminated, so there is no chance for a repeat contender, and we are now down to 4 teams. And in my effort to preview this round, I'm of course going to do a little bit of review to of course give you a little bit of context to show how how all these 4 teams got here. Right now we are down to a Champions League semifinal where there are 2 teams left from England and 2 teams left from Spain. Both of these teams are going to travel to and from England and Spain, and after both of these matchups we will have a matchup for this Champions League final that should be set for next month. So, with that said, the first matchup that's going to be taking place today is going to feature Manchester City, the top team in England right now, and Real Madrid, the top team in Spain right now, who should have already clinched the La Liga title. Taking a look first at how both of these teams got here, Manchester City first would go on to win their group stage over PSG. They won 4 of their 6 matches. They actually ended up losing a couple of them to make it into the round of 16. Once they made it into the round of 16, they ended up beating Sporting in that very first leg 5-0, which actually carried them through. They would see a goal from Riyad Mahrez. Their second goal will come from Bernardo Silva. Their third will come from Phil Foden. Their fourth would be Bernardo Silva's second goal, and then their cherry on top goal will come from their elite English forward Raheem Sterling. Going into that second matchup that they actually would go on to have to play going into their second match where they actually had to play in Manchester. That game would end up as a 0-0 draw, so they would advance to the quarterfinals off of just aggregates in itself. Then they would go on to beat Atletico Madrid 1-0 in that matchup, as their lone goal in the first leg would come from Kevin De Bruyne. They would not score at all in that second matchup. But of course, with those matchups set, that would be how Manchester City would make it to this round. Looking at their opponents, Real Madrid would go on to win in their table. They would go and beat Inter, Sheriff Donetsk, and Shakhtar, or they beat Shakhtar Donetsk and they beat Sheriff Tiraspol from Moldova. Real Madrid would win 5 of their 6 matches as they ended up losing only 1 of them. Once they made it to the round of 16, Real Madrid would go on to win their first, or actually they lost their first matchup versus PSG. The lone goal in that series came from Kylian Mbappe's 94th minute goal. They will go on to win this game on aggregate. They won this series on aggregates. They won it 3-1 after Kylian Mbappe scored the first goal of the second leg. PSG was up 2-0 in the aggregate before Karim Benzema, Real Madrid's elite French striker, would score a hat trick, but in the 61st, 76th, and 78th minutes to put Real Madrid ahead and advance them into the round, and of course eliminate the title holding and defeat the most dominant club from his home country. So after they beat PSG, Real Madrid would advance to the quarterfinals. So they would face off against the reigning Champions League winners Chelsea. In their first leg, they would go on to beat Chelsea 3-1. They had their first goal, 2 goals of the game scored by their elite French striker Karim Benzema. Chelsea would see their lone goal of the game scored in the first half right before the end, and then Karim Benzema would score his third goal to make it his second hat trick of the knockout round, of the knockout stage. So he would go on to give he gave Real Madrid the lead going into the second aggregate. Chelsea would go on to beat Real Madrid 3-2 in the second game, but Chelsea would go on to lead this aggregate 4-3 before Rodrigo would tie it up in the 80th minute, tying the aggregate up at 4. And then their game-winning goal would come in the 96th minute from Karim Benzema, as he would give them what they needed to advance past Chelsea on aggregates. And that would, of course, be how Real Madrid would get here. The first of these 2 matchups is going to be today at 3 o'clock. And because it's going to be the first matchup this week, next week it is going to be the second matchup to determine the second team that is going to make it through, as the game 2 of this matchup is going to be on May 4th, which will be next Wednesday. That'll be at 3 o'clock. Taking a look at the second matchup that is going to be taking center stage in the Champions League semifinal, we're going to see Liverpool, who is currently holding the second best record in England, facing off against Villarreal, who at this moment is holding the seventh best record in Spain. They are trying to look to stay within Champions League at all costs. Right now, it looks as though the only way they can make it into Champions League next year is if they win the entire tournament. Looking first at how Villarreal was able to make it here, Villarreal would end up finishing second in their overall group to Manchester United because they were the champion in their group after they had won Europa League last year. They would win 3 of their 6 matches in their group stage. They would draw 1 and they would lose 2 of them. So of course they would naturally come into the round of 16 as the underdraw. And in their first matchup, Villarreal would end up drawing with Juventus in game 1, as after Dusan Vlahovic would score the first goal of the matchup. Villarreal would even it up with a goal from Dani Parejo in the second half. Going into the second leg, it looks as though Villarreal would end up beating Juventus 3-0, as all 3 of their goals came in about the final 15 minutes. Their first goal coming off of a penalty kick from Gerard Moreno, their second goal coming from Pau Torres, and their third coming off of a penalty kick from Arnal Danjuma. So that would be how Villarreal would make it to the quarterfinal. Once they made it to the quarterfinal, they would face off against the former German champs, Bayern Munich, who also went on to win this year. In their first matchup, they would actually beat Bayern 1-0, their lone goal coming from Arnaud Danjuma. That was the matchup they played in Spain. And once they went to Bayern, that was actually the second matchup. The first matchup would see them get a goal from Arnaud Danjuma, as that matchup itself would be in Spain. The second matchup would be in Munich, as that game would be a 1-1 tie. Robert Lewandowski would even the aggregate at 1, but then Samuel Chukwueze would end up winning this matchup in the 88th minute for Villarreal to make it into this round. So that is how they made it here. Taking a look at how Liverpool would make it, Liverpool would sit alongside Bayern and Ajax, Liverpool and Bayern and Ajax were the 3 teams that would actually win all 6 of their group stage matches. Once Liverpool made it into the round of 16, they would actually go on to win their first matchup versus Inter Milan 2-0. Both their goals came in the second half from their Brazilian striker Roberto Firmino and their elite Egyptian winger Mo Salah. So they, of course, would have the advantage going into the second leg. The second leg would see Inter beat Liverpool 1-0, but because Liverpool had the advantage on aggregates, that's how they would win. That's actually the only game that Liverpool, I believe, has lost in Champions League so far. But going on to the quarterfinal leg, they would go on to beat Benfica, the Portuguese giant, in game 1, as they would see their first goal scored from Ibrahima Konate. They saw their second goal scored from their elite Senegalese forward Sadio Mane before Benfica scored their lone goal. And Liverpool's third goal of the first leg would come from their Colombian forward Luis Diaz, who originally started the season in the Portuguese league. That would be how they would take the advantage in Benfica. Once they went to Liverpool, both teams would score 3 goals, so it would end up as a 6-4 aggregate. First goal of this matchup was scored by Ibrahima Konate. After Benfica would even it up, Liverpool would see a brace from Roberto Firmino in the 55th and 65th minutes. Benfica would score 2 goals after that, as Benfica was pretty much out of it for the entire game. Liverpool would go up 6-1 at one point in this, or 6-2 at some point in this aggregate, but they would go on to make it into this next round, where they will face off against Villarreal. They're going to face off against them tomorrow at 3, and because they're the second matchup this week, they're going to be the first matchup next week, as on Tuesday, May 3rd, that matchup is going to start up at 3. And 2 or 3 hours after that, we are going to be aware of the first team to make it through. The winner of Villarreal and Liverpool is going to face off against the winner between Real Madrid and Man City in the Champions League final. And I can't wait to see how this matchup plays. Congratulations to all 4 teams that made it here. And of course, thanks for following through with each single round as we navigate through this history one day at a time. I want to thank the ESPN and FIFA websites for giving me all the facts and figures. And with that said, I want to thank everyone for listening. I hope all is well, and I will catch you with another piece tomorrow. Thanks for listening, and peace out.